Hey guys, welcome to a brand new unit analysis video featuring a unexpected mythic hero. Not Astra, thankfully, but Anima, and a dancer at that. So wow, definitely took me by surprise, but that means you guys get some bonus content. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at what we always do in these videos. I'm going to basically look at the new skills she brings, the weapon and such, her stats, what I think of that, a couple builds on how I think you should properly use her, and we'll compare her to the other current Anima mythics, which by the way, there's 3 others, so there's definitely some discussion to be had. So strap in, and let's do this. First up, Flower of Ease. So, Flower of Ease is pretty much an overloaded weapon that pretty much should always have its condition met, to be totally honest. So, a 3-column centered on the unit is not, it may not seem like much, but it's pretty much like a in-combat feint, kind of like the opposite of Peony's weapon, which is like Flower of Joy, where you're buffing your units, she's debuffing units. This is all in combat, so it's pretty insane. Now, the penalty thing is really easy to proc because there's definitely so many things in AR defense which this will make happen. You got your Panic Manor, you got your Shrines, you got her Dance, which we'll go into. You can have some synergy with rallies and feints, ploys, whatever. There's so much penalty stuff, even Tactics Room can apply for this, that this weapon is almost always going to be active, which is ridiculous, because if you combine this with other in-combat debuffs like lulls or units that have lulls in their skills or weapons, it ends up being pretty much in the favor of the defense that's trying to resist all this. And avoiding that penalty is hard. Now, this does make units like Bronya, Thune, and like weapons that remove debuffs, so like Carrot Cudgel and stuff. It's kind of conditional, but those will work against this weapon, and that is good for those units. However, it's not always going to work. Moving on though, it is an overloaded weapon. You pretty much never want to take that off. Maybe Katamatsu, maybe Geishin, but honestly, I don't think so. Whimsical Dream. Now, this one is also very interesting. Dance, of course. But what it does is it works kind of like a Blaze Dance for sure. It has a built-in Blaze Dance effect, so whoever she dances will get those buffs. Now, remember that dances tend to remove all debuffs because the unit takes an action. And that means that that pretty much guarantees that the unit is going to get a flat-out 5 extra attack, which would synergize pretty well with stuff like Blade Tomes, but mostly just to make nukers hit harder, preferably after rally traps. I feel like it has some good synergy with some of the dance skills actually, like Gale Dance for instance, to just pretty much give your unit a full-out attack speed buff. Again, works really well with nukes, but it can be used with Earth and Torrent Dance as well if you want them to have specific bulk. Now, the secondary effect is the interesting part. So, inflicts attack -5 on the nearest foes within 4 spaces of the unit she danced, like she hit dance on. So any tank is going to get hit by this, any support units on the back line get hit by this, but there's some innate super synergy with this because of her Flower of Ease. So she's going to hit units within her column and the ones beside her, and since she pretty much debuffs the units that are 4 spaces away, that's almost half the map, she's going to be debuffing a lot of units to create a huge stat swing between the unit she dances and the unit that's going to be nuking into the enemy team. I cannot stress how overloaded both of these skills are, and honestly, if you haven't already been suffering with Astra, you will definitely have some trouble with this. It does make units like Bridal Fjorm way better though, and I believe Bridal Fjorm, as of this video being recorded, is still active on the banner. And I'm not one to recommend things, but honestly, Isolation is going to be really good. And the thing is, this is a melee dancer, not a range one. It's not Peony, it's not Legendary Azura, it's not those range seasonal dancers. It is a melee dancer, and she comes with Fort Defense Res, which is actually pretty good for her to make her bulky. This unit will be harder to bait than the other dancers, so she's going to get those dances pretty often. If you aren't already sweating a little bit, I definitely am. So her stat spread is actually okay for a dancer. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. In fact, she probably has too much attack and not enough speed. That's probably you know, if her speed and attack was actually swapped, it should be like the perfect dancer. But honestly, high defense, high res is good. Makes it very difficult. Like doesn't make it very difficult. Makes it harder to snipe her, especially for certain units. And the fact that she has really high defense and res could mean that she actually could soak like a dark shrine, like an enemy using a dark shrine or an enemy using chill res or chill defense and relying on that. The fact that she has fort defense res also lowers her attack, which makes her hard to bait out. Pretty decent stat spread. HP is a little low, so she's pretty much always going to get Bridal Fjormed, and there's not really much you can do about that. With that being said, though, the skills she does come with that aren't her weapon and her dance are Sabotage Defense and Defense Res Gap. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Defense Res Gap. You probably will want to take that out. Sabotage Defense could work on some defense teams, but probably not. You would probably be better off just running like Wings of Mercy, Aerobatics, Flyer Formation, depending on what exactly kind of team comp you're going to be using her on. So, next up, let's talk about team comps a bit. Now, I'll start off by showing a couple builds, and then I'll show you the AR defense maps in which you could take advantage of this. So, first up is a fairly, I wouldn't call it budget, because guidance is pretty much the only thing I mean, this is about as budget as it gets, but still being effective, which is using wings, aerobatics, and guidance all synergizing together to create yourself a pretty annoying enemy dancer. Guidance can be swapped out for ground orders, aerobatics could be in the B skill, seal could be guidance, so you kind of just play with whatever fodder you have and whatever team comp you're running. This would most likely be a infantry pulse team or mixed comp using guidance and aerobatics to give her perfect positioning. The next up, of course, like I mentioned, you could use ground orders in the C slot, B for aerobatics, and as I mentioned earlier, Gale Dance to synergize with her dance's +5 attack boost, so she'll give units both attack and speed, creating really good nukes after rally traps. Again, more interchanging, so if you don't have ground orders or guidance in C, throw it on the seal, maybe have aerobatics in B. If you don't, Wings of Mercy in B probably does the job well, but again, this does highly depend on your own defense comps. You just gotta pretty much mix and match the high mobility skills and run with those. Finally, I will mention that I do feel like she does work on a fireball, which is right here. Okay, so normally I'm not really pushing for fireballs because fireballs kind of gone extinct with Peony being a thing and Leaf also threatening them. Like those two really created a big problem for a lot of fireballs because fireballs were a bunch of stats and you needed almost every unit to survive and be as bulky as possible to kind of create pressure on the opponent who's playing into it. But when you have a dancer and you have a really high offensive unit that has pretty much effective damage against the whole fireball, you have a problem. However, on Astra, there isn't Peony, or you shouldn't see Peony. There's no Mila, which again would cause problems for a dancer like this, and Leaf is conditional based on water season, but even he isn't too much of a threat if you rebuild Fireball appropriately. So yes, I do actually feel like Fireball could work again on Anima, especially since she gives res as well, which is a good stat to give to fireballs when you synergize it with like Altena or Ashnard or Mini Nerva, who all pretty much lack res and will desire this as a bonus stat. So very good unit to be adding to a fireball. But of course she does have synergy with every single type of defense team, to be honest. Like this is a unit you will see on a cav line, you will see on an infantry pulse team, you will see in a mixed team, and you'll probably see on a fireball. All of those team comps will likely be kind of much stronger with the presence of her. All the Astra mythics being weak is gonna give some problems to players that play into this. With that being said though, I do want to talk about a couple of team comps where you likely could use Mira to your advantage. So I've shown this before maybe in other videos, but basically assume Azura is Mira, and again, you're running guidance, and you'd have someone like Alm with the rally here. Alm would rally Azura or would rally Thrasher, get danced by Mira, and since Alm is in front of Mira, would likely activate her weapon and dance effect, pretty much debuff whoever tries to bait that combination. Not to mention, if you were using Gale Dance, you give Alm attack and speed buffs from naturally the rally, and that causes huge problems. Now, again, the biggest counter to all this for the player is Bridal Fjorm. If you have Bridal Fjorm, you're in a really good spot, because honestly, you're gonna kind of need her in a lot of team comps now to counter this sort of thing, because there's just a lot of debuffs, a lot of lulls, and a lot of pressure that you can't handle. Most units just cannot handle all that pressure. Units like Brunya, Athun, and any weapons that remove debuffs get a bit stronger due to this too, but not as consistent. So yeah, man, just infantry pulse teams like this will get a lot better, and cav line as well. Now I want to actually showcase the interaction here between, let's assume Peony is Mira. If you were running the Ground Order's Aerobatics variant, it is extremely impressive how effective this is. To the point where if you look at Peony here and Thrasher, imagine that Thrasher has like a ruse and is affected by Ground Orders on Peony. Now let's say that someone was to bait out Reinhardt on the far left, on the right under the golden chair there. Thrasher would fly over to Reinhardt using Ground Orders, rally him, and if you had Ruse or Feint, you would debuff that lane. Now, Peony, who stands in for Mira here, because of Aerobatics, also has a 3 movement range that would go under Ethlin and dance Thrasher. Now, you have effectively just created a overlap between Thrasher and Reinhardt there, which is ridiculous, because not only have you rused, but you've also activated Mira's weapon and her debuff, and buffed up Thrasher and created some crazy overlap of not many units can handle this, to be honest. Like a Thrasher Reinhardt combination is ridiculous. Now, if Reinhardt was red, for instance, that might even be better synergy. Like let's say it was Erica. Someone might like assume, oh, I'll just bait with a blue unit under Erica. Thrasher hops in, rallies Erica, gets danced, and now you have Thrasher pretty much covering the blue threats. So the possibilities of what you can do with this unit are really good, and yeah, I mean, I am speechless on the sort of synergy you can do here, but this is definitely an example of Mira working well with something like a cav line, not necessarily having to be flyers, not necessarily having to be on infantry pulse teams. Okay, so good teammates, definitely tons we can talk about. Here they all are, for all the different scenarios we've talked about so far. Now, I do feel like Mira works best with Thrasher, because Thrasher's killing intent is synergistic with debuffs, obviously. So take a unit that debuffs people with using her dance, and you have yourself a good unit to pretty much have her B skill always activated. Of course, if you combine it with shrines and schools and panic manners and whatever, you're gonna have some ridiculous scenarios. Okay, so other good teammates are units like Ursula and Ashnard. So Ursula works really well because you're debuffing units, especially if you use a ruse or a feint on someone like Thrasher or a different unit who would come in to rally Ursula, and then or Ursula might have a rally that might hit a unit like that has ruse. So then Mira would come in, dance Ursula, and then she would pretty much have an amazing setup on her weapon, like doing insane amounts of damage. On the other hand, we have Ashnard here who lacked res. If you guys are wondering, like the res being red and the attack being red and the res being blue is just to adjust numbers based on the mythic buffs they receive from Mira on the team. Like assume that there'd be 2 Miras on a flyer ball, or there'd only be a single Mira on an Ursula cav line. But essentially, units like this get much better because they're balancing out stats or setting up their weapons, creating some very nice synergy. Thrasher just has nice synergy because her B skill asks for debuffs. She has a good stat spread to take advantage of attack and speed bonuses that someone like Mira can give to her, and pretty much just sets her up all over, debuffing res, attack, and such. Like she will set you up really nicely. Things like Wings of Mercy as well get a lot better. If you've been using Wings of Mercy on your team, that will also work nicely. Okay, with that being said, I want to take a look at how I feel about all the Anima Mythics in the current state of the game. So, we have Mira, who I would definitely put as the #1 Anima Mythic now. No contest. Super strong unit. Dancers are crazy good, and honestly, even if she gets isolated, her weapon makes her not completely dead as a unit. You might actually still get, you know, situations where Flower of Ease is still debuffing you just because of shrines, panics, schools, and chills and such. So even if she gets isolated, she still retains some usability on a defense team. And then I would probably rank Thrasher in number 2nd. Thrasher has always, since her debut, pretty much oppressed most Astra units. She's really good nuke. Not much more to say to that. I mean, honestly, any gameplay against Thrasher would tell you this. Now, some of you may be surprised to see Duma as my number 2, and Lif being number 3, or number 4. So like Mira, Thrasher, Duma, and Lif, with Lif being last. Some of you may be surprised to see Duma here in number 3, and Lif in 4. And the big reason for this is because you can't really underestimate the potential power of literally a catapult, literally a defense catapult. And Duma stands for this. So he gives 7 damage on turn 1, he gives 3 attack to all units, and has a built-in catapult. On an infantry pulse team, or units that rely on healing tower, this is very important, because essentially you are weak to bolt towers, and most bolt towers, as you can even see from the screenshot, are on lane 3 or lane 4. Most people put it there. So by putting a catapult, a max defense catapult level 7 or level 8, whenever we get there, with Duma on the other lane, 3 and 4 covering both lanes, you pretty much can stop the most annoying engagements on your team. Like, units get sniped after Bolt Tower does 35 damage from the player. So if you have Duma and you have a defense catapult maxed, you pretty much can defend your team effectively from those sort of snipes or setups, which is why Duma retains his place as a good mythic. He literally would stay there. There's definitely situations where I would recommend Duma and Mira, or Mira and Thrasher kind of to set up nukes. Unfortunately, Lif doesn't have that much synergy with Mira. He has a bit, like, he still would be in range usually after dance, and I believe his deadly balance also is pretty nice with Mira, but again, he's a melee red sword user, and that's just not that impressive. He can't benefit from blessings, so he can't get extra bulk that he might desperately need to be frontlining. And as a backline unit, honestly, Thrasher just does better, or any other blessed unit would likely do far better than Lif. So Lif is definitely not a contender for being good here anymore, and likely just fodder him for distant counter at this point, or time spalls. So with that being said, guys, I hope you took something out of this. I believe the current banner with Mira has like 9 tickets or something, and that is very good for sparking a mythic. Let's be honest, for most legendary mythic banners, the average amount to get a specific unit is about 200 orbs. So if you have the orbs to spare and your goals are being met in the game, I highly recommend this. You'll see definitely see an improvement on your defense teams with her on it. There is some good synergy with a lot of units, a lot of team comps. This is pretty much the dream defense mythic. We definitely might see counterplay to this later if more isolation sources come out, but she still would be good even against that. So yeah, that's a good one. Now, if you have Sothis as a defense mythic, keep in mind at the end of this month, Sothis and Mira share, and that is also pretty good to get some value if the third red unit ends up being pretty good, which it might. So yeah, good unit. Definitely impressive. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below of Mira, or maybe some other. Where do you feel like Triandra or Plumeria might end up as mythics? Offense, defense, maybe we'll get the end boss as well. Those are all cool things to think about. Give the video a thumbs up if you haven't already. Sub to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one. Much love. Peace.